Factory Capers is one of the first pay-on-entry parks we come across on Rollercoaster Tycoon 2 and Classic. This makes it harder to generate revenue. Our goal here is 1,100 guests by the end of year 3. We start with a large abandoned factory complex with many of the production line buildings still in place. We have no money but a maximum loan amount of $35,000 available. I decided to max that out and get the park as full as possible with rides. To do this, I won't build any custom rides just yet, but will fill the park quickly with static rides and pre-built coasters from the build menus. First up is a mini roller coaster, and Automania fits in perfectly with the theme here. I reshaped the existing pass slightly to be able to keep the ride close to the entrance and added an information kiosk at the front. Shops and stores will be crucial in this scenario for adding to my income, as once a guest has paid to enter the park, they won't be paying any ride fees. So, to add to Automania, I've got a 3D cinema, a merry-go-round, and then another roller coaster, a Crazy Caterpillar Junior coaster. By choosing mini and junior coasters at this stage, I'm choosing cheaper rides to build, but also saving the more exciting coasters for when I build my own later in the scenario. I still have 16,000 available, so I'll add a motion simulator and, sticking with the factory theme, roadworks from the gentle car rides. Next up, another roller coaster, Mine Mania from the Mine Ride build menu. So now I'm ready to open the park and all the rides as well. While those rides attract my first guests, I'm going to start my first custom build. We don't yet have a log flume, so let's build one. This won't be as long or complex as others I may build in different scenarios. In these scenarios, excitement rating is still important, but doesn't have a bearing on what I can charge for ride entry, so we don't need long, complex tracks. This one starts at ground level, rises to its highest point, and then has its tallest drop right away. A kind of figure of 8 will keep the track compact and allows me a couple of smaller hills and drops. And I will snake the track back around itself and then underground back to the station, just to give that excitement a little bit of a boost. There's also an on-ride photo section in there too. These are really good ways of earning extra cash in any park, but especially pay-on-entry scenarios where any extra revenue opportunity is essential. A bit of scenery will finish this ride off, a little factory building to travel through, and some fire will keep guests entertained, and then I'm ready to open with a 5.83 excitement rate. As I mentioned earlier, shops and stalls will be crucial to generate revenue in this park, so I'll add a couple of balloon stands to tempt guests to part with their remaining cash. The best way to get revenue though is by having new guests come through the park gates, and the best way to attract them is with new rides, so I'll try and keep a steady flow of new openings. Pirate Ship is next. Static rides will be my friend here because they are both cheap to build and cheap to run. But roller coasters attract the most guests, and many designs also allow on-ride photo sections for extra revenue opportunities. I'm going to build a looping coaster, but to save both space and money I will operate a reverse incline launch mode. These work by pulling the track back out of the station before releasing it at the top of the hill. It then speeds back through the station and around your track until it runs out of steam, at which point it reverses back towards the station. If you're a sadist, you could just allow the car to fly off the track and crash, but if, like me, you want new guests to arrive at your park rather than killing the existing ones, always end the track with a tall climb to make sure gravity sends it back to the station. I built this close to an existing factory building, so we already have a station in place, and there are the final stats for the ride. So I said I needed a steady flow of new rides and the static ones would be my friend, so next up, Twist. A month later and Dodgems are added to the park, and skip ahead another month and I'm ready for my next coaster. The park has lots of space, and let's be honest, you could make a lot of money by deleting the pre-existing scenery pieces, but I wanted to try and complete the park without doing that. The park also has construction rights across the road and car park. This means you can build 2 tiles or more high and also underground. So I'll use that extra space for this coaster. It's going to be a custom corkscrew which begins with a small drop and then a helix up into the chain lift hill. It comes straight back down and I will use a helix to turn the track 180 degrees. It wouldn't be a corkscrew coaster if we didn't add a corkscrew, so from the lowest possible point I invert the track around itself before turning back under that original helix. Not forgetting that vital on-ride photo section, There's then another short incline and a helix into another corkscrew, and we're heading back towards the station. I did have to pause construction a couple of times and wait until I'd earned more money, but I was eventually able to finish with a corkscrew around the factory tower block before turning back to the station. So, let's test ride. Solid stats there, if not a little on the intense side, but good enough to open and hopefully attract some more guests. Corkscrew coaster open, and I want to add another thrill ride to the park, so just near the looping coaster I built earlier, I'm going to add a magic carpet. Hat stall has just become available from research, so I'm going to place that in the park straight away. I've been building a few different shops and stalls around the park as we go, but the souvenir ones are especially important because they don't rely on guests being either hungry or thirsty for them to go and part with their cash. It's always a good idea to put these kinds of stalls close to popular ride exits. That's because as a guest exits the ride, if they've had a good time, they'll be in a good mood and will be much more likely to buy a souvenir. Back to the rides, then I want to keep them coming as we go through year 3 to make sure we get that guest count up to the 1,100 target. I'm almost there, but I don't want to lose any momentum. So I'm going to add a circus in this little square here close to the park entrance. And then towards the back of the park, I'm going to add a wild mouse coaster, and the fungicide is quite a compact design and fairly cheap as well. Alongside that, I'm going to add a second 3D cinema, and I'm going to set this one to show a different film compared to the one at the front of the park. So that's another 2 rides open, and we're in May of year 3. There's a bit of space towards the front of the park, so a launch tree fall can go there, and I quite often just build escape hatch because it comes with some scenery already built around it, which adds to that excitement rating. I do often though go into the ride settings and reduce the launch speed, take a couple of blocks back from the top to add back to my revenue, and that's just to keep the intensity from being a bit too high for most guests. I've had a really good mix of gentle and thrill rides throughout this park, and I have found that guests do tend to find many rides quite nauseating. I've had to build a few first aid stands even though they don't bring me any revenue. So I'm going to add another gentle ride here and a Ferris wheel. As I say, the gentle rides and the thrill rides have proved popular in this park, and as guests seem to prefer the less intense ride, I'm pretty sure this Ferris wheel will be a popular one. There are a few more gentle rides available to me, so I'm going to build a car ride, and mega trucks will fit quite nicely in with this scenario, I think, and space-wise it also fits in this little section towards the park, which has a lot of different pathways around it. So let's get mega trucks built and open. And that will be my last new ride for this scenario. We are way above the park goal now of 1,100 guests. We're at the end of August year 3. So skip ahead to October, where as you can see I've easily beaten the 1,100 guest target. I've repaid a fair bit of my loan, so if I was to carry on playing I would have some more money to spend, but I've completed this scenario and I think I'm going to move on to the next one.